Code Vein 2 released in January of 2026 for the Xbox and PlayStation consoles and PC through Steam. I played it on the PlayStation 5 console after the latest patch, which made some changes to the balancing and enemy attack patterns. Although this is technically a sequel to the first Code Vein game, it has nothing to do with the story, and you can play this game without having played the first. Retailing for $70 Code Vein 2 is a Souls-like with an open world similar in style to Elden Ring, and it took me about 35 hours to get all 3 endings and to complete all side quests. So, is Code Vein 2 worth playing on console? This review is going to answer that question.
The resurgence corrupts everything it touches. In the blink of an eye, the world changed. The vast majority of humans and animals were transformed into vicious horrors. It was not long before human society fell apart. In their place, rising from the shadows of history, were the Revenants. Idris, the most revered and honored of all Revenants, sought out and found a way to seal the resurgence.
Let's begin the review by talking about the technical state of Code Vein 2 as of April 2026. This review will not cover the PC version, but I have seen that it is rougher than the console version. Code Vein 2 uses the Unreal Engine 5, which, for anyone who follows this channel will know, is prone to FPS problems. Code Vein 2 stutters in the open world, and the developers had to make compromises like lowering the resolution and graphics to get the game running halfway decently. There is a performance mode which tries to get 60 FPS, and a quality mode that tries to get 30 FPS, but I would recommend you stick with performance mode. This is a Souls-like, and high FPS is a requirement for success, and quality mode is not worth the low frame rate. Although performance mode does struggle to get to 60 FPS most of the time. For bugs and glitches, Code Vein 2 has its fair share. Enemy AI is poor, often falling to their deaths for no reason. Companions don't follow or fight correctly, and I often got stuck on objects or had bosses press me into a corner so that I just couldn't see. Characters clip through objects as well, so if you don't like hair and clothing clipping through bodies, then you won't like Code Vein 2. Finally, everything feels very floaty. It's kind of hard to describe, but your character walks and drives their motorcycle in a way that feels disconnected to the ground in the environment around them. The entire game feels unpolished and low quality, like a Temu version of Elden Ring or Dark Souls. I found that the locations used didn't really mesh together right. It was like the developers had a bunch of assets for various environments and just wanted you to play through them, but couldn't connect them together correctly. You had this post-apocalyptic city street next to high-tech buildings and forests. Even after a bunch of patches, Code Vein 2 still feels rough and unpolished.
Yet that victory, such as it was short-lived. As time passed, the seal gradually weakened, as all things must, and it neared a fatal failure. 100 years ago, a great battle was waged. Revenants fought desperately in an attempt to restore the strength of the seal. Many brave Revenants, in fact the very bravest, met their end in this battle, which we now call the Upheaval. The heroes of that conflict managed to reseal the resurgence in a great, moon-like shell that hangs in the sky. Today we honor them and their memory as heroes for their noble sacrifice. Even now, Calamity itself is held at bay by the mighty seal of the Luna Rapaces, which devours the life force of those heroes.
Alright, just like how the technical state of Code Vein 2 is a mess, the story isn't the most streamlined and easy to understand. The game takes place in multiple time periods, having your character hop back and forth between the past and the future to change the timeline. Code Vein 2 isn't a direct sequel to the first game, apart from having Revenants and humans. Revenants are vampires, but they can walk in the sun without any problem. The game is set in after an apocalypse occurred called the Resurgence, which caused everyone to die or turn into monsters. They sealed it away, and when the game starts, that seal is weakening, and it's up to you to defeat 5 people, keeping that seal in place so that it can then be repaired. The issue with the story isn't so much that it jumps back and forth in time, you can keep track of that, it's that the game doesn't explain anything to you. Souls-like games do take for granted that most players expect not to have things spelled out to you, but Code Vein 2 is really bad at telling you what's going on. It does have exposition dumps at times, informing the player what's happening around them, but they use a lot of terms that are really just like gibberish. It's the Souls-like version of technobabble. So the game gives you a codex, but that codex only explains things that you've already learned in the game, not the context to it. So it's really only a review of things you already know, rather than more information about the lore of the world that you would want. That's the thing about Code Vein 2. There is a disjointed story involving time travel, multiple characters and environments, but there's not a lot of lore behind it. There's no why things happen, just a bunch of terms and concepts thrown at you as an excuse to travel the world and kill things. So the main point of the story is you need to kill 5 heroes to release the seal, but you can also change the past after each one, setting you up for one of the game's 3 endings. Don't worry too much about the endings. You can get all 3 in a single playthrough, and the game is really heavy-handed about directing you on what to do. The quests are all marked out, and the points on the map to show you where to go. Overall, the story of Code Vein 2 is weak, it's unconnected to the past game, and it can be confusing if you're not following the time travel aspects of it or if you take a break in between sessions.
Ah, you've come too. As I feared, the memories may still take some time to return. Forgive me, I certainly didn't mean to startle you. My name is Lou Magmel. I am a revenant. Bear with me, for this may come as a shock. You have died once already.
Alright, now on to the most important part of the Souls-likes, the gameplay. And unfortunately, Code Vein 2 again falls short to other games in the genre. The combat feels loose and floaty, with combat not having that satisfying feeling of a Dark Souls or Elden Ring game. You can equip various weapons, upgrading them at the shop using materials, and leveling up your character at missiles, this game's version of bonfires. This game is open world similar to Elden Ring, but the open world is terrible. It's just awful. It's empty and soulless, and is really just a way to get from one quest marker to the other, one dungeon to the next. Enemies in the open world are sparse, and apart from a few upgrades to your healing, it's not really worth exploring. What makes the open world really horrible is the fact that it can be extremely difficult to find where to go. The game's map is 2D, and doesn't account for height and the terrain. So you may have a quest marker that leads you to a place, but doesn't tell you that it's a cave underneath where you actually need to go. I spent hours trying to navigate the open world at times, confused on where to go apart from a marker on a map. Often you're going to need to travel in the completely wrong direction to reach a bridge that will lead you on the correct path. Elden Ring gave you beams of light to follow, but Code Vein 2 does nothing, and it took an empty open world and made it frustrating to traverse as well. Moving on to combat, this section will depend on when you play the game and what version of it. The patches have changed the boss's attack patterns, so they were really aggressive on release and people complained. After having beat the game after the latest patch now, the bosses have been kind of tuned so that they follow patterns and there's opportunities to counterattack. But I did find the bosses in Code Vein 2 hit and miss. Some were good, most were just alright, and some were absolutely terrible. Some would move away from you too much, making it frustrating to follow them quickly. But it was the reused bosses that Code Vein 2 suffered from the most. There are a lot of bosses, but most of the side content has you fighting the same ones over and over again, meaning that if you did do the side missions before the main storyline, you already experienced the upcoming bosses. Code Vein 2 did this a lot, reusing bosses and enemies far too frequently. You would also need to refight the same bosses multiple times towards the end of the game with no difference apart from an increase in health. There were bosses that I fought at least 6 or 7 times. It all felt like an effort to pad the gameplay length, and it didn't help that the game took place in either a cave or a futuristic bunker far too often, making the environments feel similar as well. Overall, the gameplay of Code Vein 2 is alright, but it's nothing special. I will say this for the difficulty, it's odd. If you do the side content, which you absolutely should, you will be overpowered for most of the game. If you level up your character at all, upgrade your weapons at least a little bit, upgrade your blood codes like you're supposed to, then you will roll through most bosses and enemies without effort. But there are a few odd pacing issues for difficulty. Sometimes I would breeze through most of the game, while other times it would just stop me hard. I will say that the beginning of the game is much harder than the rest, with the exception of the very end. It's kind of like this: super hard at the beginning, super easy in the middle, sort of hard at the very end.
This is where I used a ritual to resurrect you. I gave half of my heart in order to restore yours. As a consequence, we now share the same heart, you and I. We are two lives intertwined as one. You seem well, all things considered. I'm glad. Do you think you can stand? There is someone that I'd very much like for you to meet.
Alright, let's go into the pros and cons of Code Vein 2. For the pros, there's over 30 hours of content here with plenty of side missions, 3 endings, character quests, and an open world to explore. There are so many weapons and builds, allowing you to play the way you want. Upgrade materials are very common, and you can purchase them from the store so you can upgrade whatever you want. Magic, melee, speed, it's all available to your playstyle. Some of the bosses are really interesting and fun to fight against. For the cons, the open world is a missed opportunity, with large sections just empty and wasted. The difficulty is all over the place, feeling way too easy for most of the game and hard at odd moments. The story is a mess, with time travel, unexplained concepts and terms, and unclear character motivations. More information on the lore of the world and characters would have greatly helped. There may also be translation issues that further muddy the waters. And that's it for another review. So, is Code Vein 2 worth playing on console for $70 US? No, absolutely not. This is a ridiculous price to pay for this game. If this was a $20 or $30 game on release, it would have been much better received. At $70 US, the game should be more polished if they want players to pay that much money. Get this game on sale for like 10 or 15 bucks in a year or so, and that will be worth playing. Until then, there are much better Souls-likes out there. I'm the Casual Console Gamer on YouTube, and I'll see you all in the next review.